Welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. And today's podcast is all about empathy and compassion, the ultimate formula for healing your heart. So, you know me, I will tell you I am most famous in my education of talking about these two characteristics of empathy and compassion and why they are essential for healthcare workers. And I was going back and forth in my research, and I actually learned that empathy is a characteristic. And it's a characteristic because it's something that distinguishes you from other people. It's something that's easily observed, and it's a quality that you have. And as a characteristic, it can be something that can be developed over time if this is not something that you do naturally. And it's certainly 100% influenced by all your experiences. And it can be demonstrated in pretty much any situation. But I want to believe that when we are in healthcare, as healthcare workers, this idea of these two characteristics, empathy plus compassion, is more like a trait. And why do I believe that? Well, a trait is a little bit different. It's actually an aspect of your personality. And that trait, it tends to be more reliable and it helps you to endure in certain situations. And I just feel like as healthcare workers, this is our superpower. This is where we all excel, or at least I want to believe that with my heart. But I will tell you that I know this to be true, that so many of us in healthcare, we need to heal our hearts from our everyday experiences because we tend to be those type of people that give and give and give, and we don't take that needed time out for self-care. And I want it to be different. That's why I'm here today, because I want to believe as a healthcare professional, we should be able to sit in a place where we are with our patients and we are allowing ourselves to show empathy and compassion. And we're really creating the conditions for that all to exist. That's a really safe, sacred space for that to occur. And there are just so many people right now in this world that are suffering. And their conditions that they experience every single day, those chronic medical conditions, those conditions that keep them up at night and keep them away from their ability to be self-fulfilling, well, it is full of challenges for them. And when you are a healthcare worker and you show empathy and you show compassion together in the same formula, you have the ability to alleviate some of that suffering. And I will tell you, I know this to be true here in life school. Anything that you want to do, you can achieve mastery at. You just have to find the ways and the time to do it over and over again with consistency. You have to do it in every single situation, regardless of what's happening around you. And I will tell you, when I look back at my nursing career, I say this over and over in education. There wasn't anybody that actually explained this concept to me, that there were going to be times in my career as a nurse where I could find myself in a situation where I wasn't at my personal best, where I was going to be stressed, where I was going to have feelings of frustration and getting angry at something that was happening around me. And that it was my responsibility to take that time out, to step back, to look at what was happening around me, and to recognize that this was having an emotional and a mental impact on my ability to heal other people. Well, I want to say most of the times that happened. I mean, when I look back in the field of oncology, when I was an oncology nurse and I worked with people that were going and dealing and managing with having, you know, very stressful situations where they got that cancer diagnosis and they weren't sure if they had it in them to press forward and to push themselves forward and to carry on and to beat that cancer. I mean, there were times in those experiences where I learned the power and the importance of offering hope freely, like painting a picture for that person because they might not be able to see it for themselves, or their family might not be conveying that picture for them. It was about offering presence and being there with that person and creating that really safe psychological space where sometimes it was just that the presence of having somebody there to listen to you when you were going through difficult times was enough. And the power of reassurance. Boy, is there power in that as a healthcare professional. I mean, when we sit in that place and we offer reassurance to somebody, to me, that is a beautiful demonstration of empathy and compassion at its finest. So, very often when I'm educating people, I talk a lot about the differences between empathy and compassion and why they are both necessary for every single person that works in healthcare. So, I'm going to share with you this simplified definition of what I use when I train people. So, empathy, quite simply, is our ability as human beings to see the perspective of someone else. We may not never understand that perspective. We may never experience that perspective. We may never even know what that perspective feels like, but we can understand that is the person's perspective. And we sit in a place with that person and accept that as their perspective without being triggered, without judging that person, and creating a safe space for them to share and to heal. Now, compassion's a little bit different. Compassion requires action on our part as healthcare workers. And I always like to use the definition compassion is our ability as human beings to alleviate pain and suffering in someone. See, we can't just walk on by situations. We are compelled to want to alleviate that pain and suffering for that person. And that's what makes us amazing healthcare professionals. That's what's built into our DNA. But sadly, I have seen in this world past the pandemic that sometimes in that formula, you may have someone who is navigating through the day-to-day as a healthcare professional and they lack empathy, but they have compassion. And I've seen people that have no compassion, but they have empathy. And what I'm asking for you as a healthcare worker is I'm asking for you to recognize that these two things come together. I feel like it's that commercial back in the 70s when it was like the Reese's peanut butter cup and the one guy was going around the corner with the peanut butter and the girl was going around the corner with the chocolate bar and the two went together and they were like, they're perfect together. That's how I feel about empathy and compassion. They are meant to be together. And I will tell you, when I think about this idea of compassion and empathy being a perfect formula for healing to occur, I also can appreciate the incredible power of being guided by a presence of love. I mean, think about this. Think about the times and the interactions that you've had with different people in your life where that person had this natural ability to just show an expression of love in their actions, in their communications, in the way they treated you. Maybe it was a kind word. Maybe it was just the way they looked at you. It was from an essence and a feeling of love. And if you are lucky enough to experience these three things all together, I can assure you it is absolutely breathtaking. And so I was doing a lot of education this week, and I'm just still struck by a conversation I had with a part-time supervisor who confided in with me at the end of the education session I did. And again, I did a quick micro learning. It wasn't a very long and extensive session, but it was enough to move this supervisor to come and talk to me about something that she sees every day in the day-to-day. And again, she was a part-time supervisor. Her full-time day job was working in a hospital setting. So, two parts of healthcare. But what really stood out for me was something that she said to me. And she said to me, when I come here as a supervisor and I act in this role, I see this as a supervisor, but I also see this in healthcare when I'm working in the healthcare space. I feel like, to some degree, compassion died with COVID. And boy, did that hit me. It hit me right between the heart. I mean, I just felt I didn't know what to feel, quite honestly. Part of me felt like saying, absolutely not. That is not true. There's a lot of people out there that still have compassion. But in my quiet reflection, when I was really looking inward, I was thinking about this idea of, are we really talking about a place where we're really existing right now in our day-to-day because of the world that we live in a post-COVID world, that is more likely that people have hardened their hearts towards compassion. And they're not remembering just how to do it. Why? Because it's not happening organically and naturally around them. And then when they exit their healthcare centers and they go about their world and they're in the supermarket or in the mall or they're around anybody, where are we seeing the people rising up and saying, we are going to treat everybody with empathy and compassion and love? It just doesn't happen. And I'm sad to say that that is our state. But I feel like it's a call to action for those of us in healthcare because we are wired to care this way. This is who we are. It's our being. And one of the things that I know to be true post-COVID, and I feel like I'm here today to share with you, is I feel like this is really our life's work here. I mean, I know for me, this is my life's work. It's to give you something to hold on to hope for, to give you something to search for. Because for me, the alternative is just too terrifying. I mean, I want you to see that you were designed on this earth with a very distinct purpose. That purpose was to be the best healthcare worker possible. You are supposed to take those healing superpowers that you have and use them to heal other people every single day. But it is so incredibly full of challenges. Why? Well, I want you to think for a second. And in fact, you can go ahead and close your eyes as long as you're not driving, because I do want you to think about this. I want you to think about a time in your life when you were sick and you were not well and you needed someone to care for you. That's right. Very simple. And I want you to go back in time and I want you to imagine what that felt like. And depending on the situation, I want you to imagine, were you unable to do things independently? Like, how did that feel? I mean, how did it feel to know overnight, because how you were feeling, the things that you did every single day, you were no longer able to do? You were no longer able to care for yourself. You needed someone else to provide that care to you. And I want you to imagine how you felt in that moment. I know for me, when I do this visualization exercise, there are several instances that this happened to me in the course of my life. And I can tell you the incredible power of a healthcare worker is that you can take people out of despair and bring them up with this superpower that you have. You can not only heal them, but you can give them the courage and the strength and the tenacity and the grit to push themselves forward. They can do that because you're creating that picture for them. You're creating that image for them. You're listening to them. You're reassuring them. You're encouraging them. I mean, aren't I describing exactly what a superhero would do if it was somebody in healthcare? Of course I am. But I want you to never lose sight of this very, very important fact, which is the people that come to you are sick and they are not well, and you are never going to see them at their best. That's the reality. So that is why empathy and compassion are needed, because they are not in a place where they can be empathetic and compassionate probably towards you. And this is where the deep work happens, people. This is where the hard stuff works. It's very easy to lose sight and to forget about this incredible superpower because we want, as a natural tendency as human beings sometimes, to just give it right back when somebody gives it to us. And what I'm asking you to do instead in this post-COVID world is I'm asking you to imagine what life could be like if, instead of us responding that way, instead of us allowing ourselves to be activated by those environments, by those people who are sick and are not at their personal best, and they need our help to be better, that instead we respond with feelings of love instead. And this, to me, is where the beauty of healthcare exists. I mean, if I imagine this world where every single healthcare worker tomorrow, every single one, wakes up and develops this skill and is able to do this naturally and organically, despite what's happening around them, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes. And for me, when I think of pre-COVID times in healthcare, prior to all the craziness that we've experienced in healthcare and we've not gotten back this sense of normalcy, I think about all those times as a nurse where I had those direct experiences with my patients and I was able to share love and presence and a warm touch, and how beautiful that was. It makes me think about a time when the pandemic first hit. I still feel like this is a piece that settles very deep in my heart. And for those of you that don't know, most of my experience as a nurse was in the hospital setting, but towards the end of my nursing career, I worked in long-term care, and I worked in long-term care as a per diem nurse while I was a consultant at the same time. I always worked as a nurse in per diem because I wanted to be able to experience those feelings of giving back. I mean, even when I worked my way through in leadership in various positions, it were those moments that I had, that direct patient contact, were the most meaningful to me, that they were the ones that settled into my heart and kept deeply in my soul and reminded me of why I was doing the important work that I was doing. But during the pandemic, when I was working in long-term care, overnight, not being able to hug any of the residents that had dementia, that would reach their arms out and want to hug you so bad. And then you had to recoil back with your masks and your face masks and your gowns and your gloves and pull yourself away. I mean, that feeling of recoil and pulling away from love for somebody that was wired to care like me, it really impacted who I was as a caregiver. It altered me as a human being. And I feel like that was so long ago, but I also feel like we need to do better in healthcare. This needs to be our immediate priority. And it's going to take everybody to do this. I mean, I feel like this is line in the sand moment. I mean, we've got to draw a line down, in the sand, and we have to say, you either step over this line or you step away, right, in healthcare. We have no choice. We have to lead with empathy and compassion. And why am I asking you to do this? I mean, look at our world right now. Look at the people that you are seeing every day and what you are exposed to every day when you leave work, go about your day, go about your personal lives, and doing what you need to do outside of work, let alone inside of work. People are full of rage and anger and frustration. It is palpable. And I feel like, it is so important because we are healthcare workers. We're the role models for these characteristics. I feel like we're the ones who are teaching everybody else in the world, this is how you should do it. This is how you should approach it. And I feel like it is so difficult to do because the reality is when you leave your workplace and you come to your workplace and you leave your workplace and go out into the world, you're exposed to all these things that affect you. Now, I'm podcasting here in a studio here in New Jersey where one of my favorite shows on HBO is filmed. It's the series Severance. And I love this series. And if you're like a Severance person like me, raise your hand and give yourself a shout out. I'm not going to spoil this great show. You're just going to have to watch it if you're interested. But I love, love, love the concept of this show, which is people enter into work and they have the ability by going up and down this elevator to become somebody different and forget themselves when they come into work. And then when they leave work, they forget what they did at work. Boy, it seems so fascinating and interesting, right? But why this show is so fascinating is there are a whole lot of issues that happen when you can't connect the two together. We should be living as one, right? Inside work and outside work. And we don't have technology yet to find those moments where we can just be ourselves all the time. It's going to take work and it's going to take practice and it's going to take doing it over and over again through repetition. But what I know to be true is it absolutely is something that can be taught to everybody. So how do you do it? I mean, how do you find moments where you are consistently showing and demonstrating both empathy and compassion in the way you're responding to situations? Well, first and foremost, let's all just come to this agreement that we're all human beings, right? We're all imperfect, and no matter how many times you practice this and try to do this really, really well and land this, there are still going to be moments where you're not going to land it perfectly. You're going to miss the moment. and you're going to be beating yourself up for it. I know because I've done it a million times. But I'm here to tell you the most beautiful thing about this life as we're navigating here in life school is that we have the opportunity to learn and grow as human beings. And so one of the best ways to do this is we need to get better at slowing down our pace. We need to get better at taking a couple deep breaths and allowing air to enter and exit our lungs. And then while we're doing that, we need to picture someone or something that we love. And we need to allow those feelings to flow through our bodies so that feeling of love just permeates everywhere. It's that simple. I mean, it really sounds that simple, right? Well, listen, don't tell me that it's not possible because I know it's possible. And I'm going to tell you, if you were in a different situation, you would 100% be saying it differently. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just say that I had this magic wand here, and I'm going to wave this magic wand, and then tomorrow, wherever you work, in whatever unit is, whatever hospital that is, whatever facility that is, wherever you work, that entire unit is emptied out of every patient that you take care of. And then what if I wave this magic wand and in its place, it was filled with everyone you loved? How would that simple action change care delivery? It would change everything. And you cannot say it wouldn't. Of course it changes everything because it's the people that you love. It's the people you care the most about. And I'm going to remind you as a healthcare worker, this is where the deep work happens. You have to remind yourself that the families of your patients, they're just like you would be. If I used my magic wand and now we had a space where all of your loved ones were there, I guarantee you'd be advocating for the best care delivery. And it is really hard. It's full of challenges because it's healthcare, and healthcare is full of challenges. Every day is going to be full of challenges. That's why we must work together with the spirit of having empathy towards one another, by being compassionate towards one another, and absolutely showing love towards one another. We've got to lead with positive intent. And it's time for us to really get to that place where that is what we do in the day-to-day. And I'm going to remind you, if you struggle with this, I want you to think about those people that come in that need care and services. These are people that are not well. The burdens that they are carrying, you will never know, because many of them will never tell you. And so it's really difficult for you to be in a place of empathy when you don't even know how someone feels. But what you can do is you can create that safe space where a discussion can be had, where a communication can go back and forth, and you can use your words to make a difference in somebody's life. That's all up to you. You can be that person that chooses to be a role model. You can be that person that knows how important it is to lead by example. You can be that person that shows empathy and compassion and love, even in situations where people are responding to you in a way that is less than of anything that's close to love. And I will tell you, as a general reminder, what I know to be true in this world here while we're all here in life school, is this is really difficult. Because if you look at it from that perspective, that most people have never sought help for the things that have happened to them while they were here in life school. That's from childhood and all the way up through the whole span of their life. Many people have never sought any support or help or services. And because of that, they are also carrying around a tremendous burden and weight. And some of them are carrying around a lot of things that for them can be very triggering, just like they're triggering towards you. And if we respond in a non-loving way, in very high stressful situations, which is healthcare, we can quickly see how that can change everything. How overnight and instantaneously chaos can happen, and everyone is absorbed into these feelings where love is nowhere to be found. Compassion is nowhere to be found, and empathy is nowhere to be found. But you know what's there in its place? Pain and suffering and judgment and vengeance and revenge. All of those things are there in its place. And part of me wanting to podcast on this topic was really just a secret desire that I had in myself. I mean, I really want this to be a call to action. I really want you to know, as a healthcare worker, you were destined and designed to do this great work. This is what you were put here in life school to do. But it means you must take time out every day for self-care. And this is where it gets really hard. Because like I said in the beginning, we're really good at giving that care. We're not so good at protecting ourselves and getting that self-care for ourselves. And I want you to know that even as you navigate through this world, even in this podcast, when you find practices and ways that you can use to heal your heart, I want to remind you that this is never a one and done situation here in life school. I mean, this is constant work that you are doing over and over and over again. You're constantly looking inward. You're constantly resisting that temptation that's going to bubble up inside of you to look outward at other people and to notice what they're doing and to point fingers in blame. That's part of who we are as human beings. And I feel like in our world right now, this is just what we see everywhere. I'm going to remind you what you need to do instead is to slow down your pace, be in that soft, still silence, even if it's only for 1 or 2 seconds, and picture something that you love. And I guarantee you, when you respond, you're going to respond in a more controlled and loving way. And don't forget, there is incredible power with just sitting in still silence and listening to the silence from within. People forget that. Whether that's you praying or meditating or just sitting outside with your eyes closed and like listening to nature around you, just do it. And listen, I've had people tell me, I can't meditate or I can't sit in silence. My head is bouncing all over the place. And I'm going to tell you the story that my good friend Mary Tellis shared with me when I told her that I couldn't meditate because my brain did the same thing. She said, "Oh, Arlene, that is so silly. Everything can be learned through practice. Just don't give up. Do it over and over again. Do it 20 times. Do it 30 times. And you know what? She was 100% right. It just took consistency and doing it over and over again. And the beautiful thing about sitting in silence, where you're just paying attention to your breathing, is it allows your brain to sort of settle down. It allows you to connect closer to your emotional system. It's going to allow you to find that quiet, soft space where you can find some time to heal yourself by looking at situations from a different perspective, by reframing out those situations and looking at them from a different lens. Listen, you're not going to fix something if you're not even willing to notice that you can do it, right? Your entire life is going to be on a hamster wheel, doing things over and over again if you're going to be that type of person that's unwilling to try something. If you're going to be that person that's unwilling to be open and to at least explore the possibility of, could this be a source for me as a healthcare worker to find practices and ways to heal my heart from everything I experience every day, where I learn how to let those things go. And I learn instead, when those thoughts surface up into my mind and they try to be repetitive, I recognize that's a thought and I send to my mind love and healing instead. And listen, if you're sitting on the fence here and you're thinking, I don't know if I can do this, I'm going to tell you, don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. I want you to remember, like, if you think about it and you think about your purpose on this earth and you think about why you're here with this magical superpower to heal people through your education and through getting mastery and really working at your skills and skills development, who knows? You could be that one person that impacted that one person's life who maybe they had pain and suffering. And as a result, that person was propelled forward into doing something amazing in this world and for the benefit of humanity. You just don't know. But what I know that is 100% true is while you're here in life school, you've got to continue to educate yourself as a healthcare worker. You've got to continue to find ways to keep coming back and doing it over and over again. You've got to institute practices of anti-fragility, which is this concept of not only, it's like resilience 2.0. It's not just coming back, but you're coming back stronger the next time because you've built in that space and that time to allow yourself to self-reflect, to allow yourself to get some healing in to your body and your soul so you can look at the situation differently. And there's incredible power at looking at your day-to-day and forcing yourself, forcing your mind to look for those moments of joy and allowing yourself to experience those moments of joy, in giving yourself the freedom to feel those feelings of joy. And when you do this, when you model these behaviors as a healthcare worker, you role model love and empathy and compassion for the entire world. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like something that we all need. And we need it now more than ever. So I hope in this podcast, you really stopped and thought a little bit about that formula of empathy plus compassion. And I hope you learned something and took something from that podcast. And remember, if you don't hear it enough, I can't say it enough. Thank you for everything you do every single day. You make a difference in this world. And without you, what would we do? We need you. And thank you for everything you do. So listen in on a future podcast, everyone. Goodbye.